Welcome to the 6th lecture of this lecture series titled Introduction to Philosophy, which is meant for India's UGC NTA NET exam. This is a lecture in Chapter 1 on Vedantic and Upanishadic World Views under the first unit titled Classical Indian Epistemology and Metaphysics. In this lecture, we provide an overview of the concepts of Atman and the four states. First, we discussed Atman. Atman is the closest that comes in Indian philosophy to self. Atman pervades all. It remains immortal, universal, immanent, and transcendent. I, body, and stream of consciousness are instruments and objects of self. Self transcends all. It moves the universe. Atman is self-luminous, self-proved beyond doubt. Importantly, the self cannot be identified with body under Indian philosophy. Atman is one of the 9 substances or dravya in Nyaya and Vaisheshika schools of Indian philosophy. Next, we discuss the 4 states of consciousness as noted in the Mandukya Upanishad. The said Upanishad identifies 4 states: JAGRAT, SVAPNA, Sushupti, and TURIYA. The first stage is JAGRAT. Verse 3 of the Mandukya Upanishad states that the waking state, outwardly cognitive, having 7 limbs, having 19 mouths, enjoying the gross, the common to all men, is the first fourth. The state is about the gross self or the bodily self, and is the stage when we are awake. There is vision, taste, smell, sound, or feel of the objects. The self enjoys gross objects in waking states with consciousness of the external world. The state is also known as the Vishwa state or the waking state. The next state is the state of Swapna. Verse 4 of the Mandukya Upanishad states, the dreaming state, inwardly cognitive, having 7 limbs, having 19 mouths, enjoying the exquisite, the brilliant, is the second fourth. Swapna is the dream state, where objects are framed by the mind independently. Note that in the waking state, objects are outside the mind, but in Swapna, they are created in the mind. In doing so, the mind takes help from the other senses. This is known as Taijasa. In the dream state, perception exists without sensation. In both Jagrat and Swapna, the self is ever changing and cannot become the real self. The third stage is Sushupti. Verse 5 of the Mandukya Upanishad says, if one asleep desires no desire whatsoever, sees no dream whatsoever, there is deep sleep. The deep sleep state unified just a cognition mass consisting of bliss, enjoying bliss, whose mouth is thought, the cognitional is the third fourth. Sushupti is basically the deep sleep state. Here, the self is regarded as a mere abstraction. The self is a subject as opposed to the object. There is no real or imaginary state object in deep sleep state. Here, the self ceases to exist and there is no gross or subtle object. The subject-object duality is transcended in this stage. This is prajna. The fourth state is the turiya. In this regard, verse 6 of the Mandukya Upanishad says, this is the Lord of all. This is the all-knowing. This is the inner controller. This is the source of all, for this is the origin and end of beings. It is in this state that higher positive bliss is found and pure consciousness is felt. Turiya is realized through intuition only, where there is calm and blissful state. It is a state of supreme bliss. Now, the last topic that we deal with in this lecture is Om and its relation to the four states. The Mandukya Upanishad mentions the relationship between the four states and Om, the cosmic sound. In verse 8, it provides a prelude. This is the self with regard to the word Om with regard to its elements. The elements are the fourths. The fourths, the elements. The letter A, the letter U, the letter M. Verse 9 deals with the relationship between Om and Jagrat, that is the waking state. The waking state, the common to all men, is the letter A, the first element from Sti, obtaining, or from Adimatya, being first. He obtains verily, indeed all desires, he becomes first. He who knows this. Verse 10 deals with the relationship between Om and the sleeping state. It says, the sleeping state, the brilliant, is the letter U, the second element from Utkarsha, exaltation, or from Ubhayatya, intermediateness. He exalts verily indeed the continuity of knowledge, and he becomes equal. No one is ignorant of Brahman, is born in the family of him who knows this. Verse 11 concerns the relationship of Om with the deep sleep state or Sushupti. It says, the deep sleep state, the cognitional, is the letter M, the third element from Mithi, erecting, or from Apiti, emerging. He verily indeed erects Minoti, this whole world, and he becomes its emerging. He who knows this. Verse 12 concerns the relationship between Om and Turiya, the blissful state. The fourth is without an element, with which there can be no dealing, the cessation of development, benign without a sound. Thus, Om is the self, Atman indeed. He who knows this, with his self enters the self. Yeah, he who knows this. So that's all in this lecture. Have a great day.